It was a bright morning in the heart of the city when Adrien Keller, a self-made millionaire known for his cold precision and strict discipline, walked into his mansion's kitchen after finishing a long business call. The sun poured through the tall windows, bathing the marble floors in gold. Everything in his world was perfectly timed, spotless, and under control until he heard the faint scraping sound of a fork against a plate somewhere behind the counter. Curious, Adrien followed the sound, expecting a staff member cleaning up after breakfast. But as he turned the corner, he froze. There, crouched behind the dining table, was his young maid Isla. Her uniform was slightly wrinkled, her eyes lowered, and in her trembling hands, she held a small plate of leftovers from the previous night's dinner. She wasn't sitting at the table. She wasn't even using proper cutlery. She was quietly eating on the floor, taking hurried bites, afraid someone might see her. For a long moment, Adrien simply stood there, a billionaire watching a woman hide to eat the food that would viz a waste. He had built an empire from scratch, conquered markets, and managed fortunes. But in that instant, he realized how detached he had become from simple human struggle. Without a word, he quietly stepped back so she wouldn't notice him. But that image Isla hiding to eat scraps wouldn't leave his mind. Later that day, Adrien reviewed her file. Isla had been working for him for 8 months, always punctual, always polite, never asking for anything. Her salary was modest but fair, or so he thought. He had never once asked about her life, her family, or her needs. To him, she was just another staff member. But that night, as he lay in his bed surrounded by luxury, he couldn't sleep. The thought of her small hands clutching that plate of cold food haunted him. The next morning, he went to the kitchen early. Isla was already there, wiping the counters, her face pale, her movements careful and quiet. When she accidentally dropped a spoon and flinched in fear, Adrien realized this wasn't about hunger, it was about dignity. She wasn't just surviving, she was enduring. He began observing her more closely and soon learned from the head housekeeper that Isla sent almost all her earnings back to her village to care for her ailing mother and younger brother. She kept just enough to survive, often skipping meals so her family could eat. That afternoon, Adrien went to his favorite restaurant, but his expensive meal felt tasteless. Every bite reminded him of Isla's hidden corner. He remembered his own early struggles, sleeping on office couches, eating instant noodles, chasing success. Somewhere along the way, he had forgotten what it meant to be hungry, not just for food, but for hope. A week later, Adrien made a quiet decision that would change everything. He called all the staff to the dining room and announced that from that day forward, everyone in his household, maids, gardeners, cooks, would eat together in the same dining room, at the same table. No one would eat in corners or separate quarters again. The room fell silent. Isla's eyes filled with tears, but Adrien only said, "No one should have to hide to eat." From that day, the mansion felt different. The halls that once echoed with silence now carried laughter and warmth. Adrien found himself sitting with his staff, listening to their stories, learning their dreams. For the first time in years, he felt human again. But Adrien wasn't done. A few weeks later, he called Isla into his study. Nervously, she stepped inside, clutching her apron. Adrien handed her an envelope and some documents. Inside was a scholarship for her younger brother's education and full medical support for her mother's treatment. Isla's eyes widened as she looked at him in disbelief. Her voice broke as she whispered thank you, and Adrien smiled softly. "You've spent your life helping others," he said. "Let someone help you this time." Everything changed after that. Isla's mother slowly recovered. Her brother started attending school. Isla began to smile again genuinely. As for Adrien, he started visiting orphanages and shelters, quietly donating food and funding education programs under anonymous names. One evening, as the sun streamed through the tall windows, Adrien sat at the long dining table surrounded by his staff, laughter filling the air. Isla served the final dish and sat down beside them not as a servant, but as part of a family. Adrien looked around and realized that the woman who had once hidden to eat leftovers had taught him the greatest truth of all: compassion is the real currency of a meaningful life. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Because every act of empathy, no matter how small, can change someone's entire world. Before we end, tell us in the comments, what does kindness mean to you?